Hi everybody, I hope you're having a great day. In this video, I'm going to be covering Whiplash. Now, although there was an original Whiplash named Marco Scarlotti, the most current version who I'll be covering today is Anton Vanko, who, by the way, cannot stand Marco and talks trash about him regularly. And Vanko made his first appearance in Iron Man vs. Whiplash, issue number 1, that was released in December of 2009. His complete government name is Anton Vanko, and he's a genius Russian scientist who stands 6 feet tall and weighs 235 pounds, also having greenish-brown eyes, as well as originally having black hair while wearing a helmet that has greenish-blonde hair attached to it, although now he's actually dyed his own hair that greenish-blonde color. And as an unusual side note, he also has 4 prosthetic fingers on his right hand. Now, Vanko has no physiological superhuman abilities, but he is a genius electrical engineer and inventor, being one of the very few individuals on Earth that are smart enough to reverse engineer Tony Stark's technology. In addition to this, he's also a very skilled athlete, showing that he has brawn to match his brain. But overall, his abilities stem from his Whiplash armor, which was a suit of armor created from the Iron Man Mark 29 armor, and he equipped it with 2 electrically charged whips at the wrists. These plasma whips are constructed from the copper wires that made up the electromagnetic motors that powered the Mark 29 armor, and they're spring-loaded and can extend to up to 25 feet long, being used for a variety of offensive and defensive maneuvers, although they're typically used to just slice through most every solid object that you can come across. Uniquely, these whips can not only cut through things and deflect things such as bullets, they can be spun like propellers for a limited ability of flight. Not to mention that Vanko also likes to wear a pair of infrared contact lenses that give him night vision and the ability to perceive thermographic images through solid objects and walls. In other words, Vanko is very resourceful and intelligent with the limited budget and materials that he has. Now, Anton Vanko hails from the small Russian village known as Vostok, and he's a character driven by singular, all-consuming purpose, which is revenge against Tony Stark, the armored Avenger known as Iron Man. This obsession takes root in a devastating tragedy, which twisted Vanko's path from scientist to supervillain, and forever solidifying him as a thorn in Iron Man's side. Vanko's world was shattered when his village was attacked by an imposter Iron Man. This fake, being clad in stolen Stark tech, unleashed a brutal assault and left a trail of death and destruction, which included Vanko's own father. So totally being consumed by grief and fueled by misinformation, Vanko believed that Tony Stark himself was the one responsible for the carnage. Now, being driven by pure vengeance, Vanko would set his scientific expertise to a horrifying task, scavenging pieces of the imposter's armor, like the chest plate itself, and he embarked on a 6-month project. This tireless dedication would result in him successfully reverse engineering the chest plate into a weapon unlike any other. He would build his own personal, partial suit of body armor equipped with energy whips, a technological marvel fueled by his burning hatred. From this point forward, he'd be known as Whiplash, a figure dedicated to Stark's demise. Meanwhile, we'd see that Stark was officially framed for the Vostok attack and would find himself in prison. It's here that we'd see Whiplash blast onto the scene, making a brutal prison break wherein he eliminated the guards and set his sights on Stark and his confidant, Pepper Potts. But as we'd see, Stark is never fully defenseless, because he had used his ingenuity and scavenged materials to fashion a crude Iron Man suit himself. This was enough to barely engage Whiplash in a brutal battle, and the fight would end with Whiplash escaping, leaving Stark battered but alive. Now, a little while later, as Stark investigated the truth behind the Vostok attacks, Whiplash would remain fixated on his target, with the villainous Russian arriving at the headquarters of the criminal syndicate responsible for framing Stark. There, a shocking revelation would emerge that the attack wasn't Stark's doing. It was actually the Russian Prime Minister Vladimir Putin who was seeking to silence an activist there. Yet, despite Vanko and Stark simultaneously learning this truth and temporarily working together to take out their common foe, Whiplash would remain fixated on revenge, arguing that even if Stark himself didn't pull the trigger, his technology did, which made him an accomplice. Therefore, their fight would then resume and would culminate in a burning building who forced both men to flee. We'd later see that Stark was eventually cleared of all charges, and he would actually focus on rebuilding Vostok. And during this time, we'd see that Whiplash was still in the shadows, but he would resurface in Moscow, outside of Putin's residence, which was a chilling reminder that his quest for revenge was far from over. Oh, and he wasn't done with Tony yet either, because he would keep seeking out new opportunities to strike at Stark. This being said, his thirst for revenge would have fallout that extended beyond just Stark. Whiplash would not only take part in a villainous iteration of the Thunderbolts, but he would also join the Shadow Counselor's Masters of Evil, which was a collective of supervillains dedicated to global domination. This alliance would broaden the scope of his threat and would place him in conflict with not just Iron Man, but the entire superhero community. And by the time that it was all said and done, Whiplash had a long list of devastation that he has caused. Now, his story is a cautionary tale of vengeance consuming a brilliant mind. His journey illustrates the devastating impact of loss, amazingly showing that while the truth behind the Vostok attack eventually surfaced, it would come too late for Whiplash. His hatred would blind him to reason and would make him a constant threat to Iron Man and the world. And whether he was seeking personal revenge or joined forces with other villains, he remained a potent adversary for whoever he came across. Now, for his abilities and his influence on the Marvel Universe, for my 1 to 10 rating, I'll give the most current Whiplash a rating of 4, which is a rating of Journeyman. I hope everyone enjoyed this video. I'll talk to you next time. Be sure to like, subscribe, and join the new Sage.